Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. If you have not seen my face before, I am Katie Gideon, and I will be the on-camera facilitator for this April weekly setup. And you will have to bear with us a little bit. There we go. You have to bear with us a little bit because the setup's a little bit different, and all the chaos that entails. But I think we're good. We got it set up. We will make it through this. But welcome. We are so glad that you're here. I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator who you'll see in the chat, Maya, who will be helping me stay on track because I feel like that's where we are right now. But I love seeing all of our returning socialers, and I love seeing if there's anybody new. I thought I saw someone new, but welcome. We are glad that you're here. And if you want to participate in as much or as little of this social as you want, just double check that your chat is set to everyone. Monica was the new one. Welcome, Monica. We're glad that you're here. But if again, you can participate in as much or as little of this social as you want because we're glad that you've come exactly as you are. So just double check that that chat is set to everyone. And as we go, please feel free to continue to work on the prompts and share as we go, because some people like to just come here for the camaraderie, the vibes, the setup, or maybe you're just in the mood to sit and work on just your journal. So you can absolutely do that. There is no right or wrong way to participate in these socials, and there's no right or wrong way to journal as well. So we are glad that we can go ahead and get started. And as always, please be kind and courteous to yourself and others, no promotions or spam, respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying, limit repetitive product and accessory questions. And then when Maya and I have some information, we will most likely need to redirect a lot of your customer care inquiries to our team at headquarters, which is hello@silkensonder.com. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if you have had a day, that is fine. If you've had a week, also fine. If you are still trying to adjust to time zones, which is what I am doing, that is also fine. So if you need to participate in this as well, or at the same time, if you need to set up some of those mental and emotional boundaries and barriers, that is absolutely okay to do. I will say the mind map in particular can be a little bit challenging. It was one of those, I have certainly had a hard time with the mind map question, just because I have been all sorts of distracted, all sorts of pulled in different directions, and that is okay because I have the whole week to answer that response. And so I thought this was quite a timely theme. One, I do love and a good alliteration. So the fact that April and awareness are the theme, I think is really great. Because what I also find is it's the best way to trick your mind to participate in those type of things. So if you need to kind of if you have a hard time connecting with the theme, I think this makes it a pretty good connection point just because of the alliteration. So I always enjoy that. And I came across this quote just because I think it always kind of makes a point in my life a little bit. And that's the self-awareness is our capacity to stand apart from ourselves and examine our thinking, our motives, our history, our scripts, our actions, and our habits and our tendencies. I find this an amazing skill that I think everybody needs, but not a lot of people have. And that is okay because this is one of those, it takes time, it takes energy, it takes effort. And I don't know if other people think of it this way, but I almost have to visualize this thought process where I almost see myself outside of my body, which I know sounds really weird, watching these interactions, going, girl, you need to read the room and realize that that is not what needed to happen. That is not what needed to be said. And you're just kind of sitting and watching yourself go through these actions and conversations and motivation, and it just throws you a bit. But I do think it's one of those really interesting skill sets that I think is something that I for sure want to work on during this month as well. And I think part of it is also just because I've been in kind of management positions. And I think that's also a really key thing because there's nothing It's that type of you need to be able to kind of take on some of that feedback. And I know if you've attended some of Bailey's, the weekly, and then I think her monthly as well, where it's talking about, feedback has a time and a place. And so it's also knowing kind of who the audience is that's giving that feedback and whether to take that on kind of full focus. I think for sure comes with that awareness. But I do think this is a great opportunity this month for me, especially to kind of work on the self-awareness. And so we are going to work on the awareness mind map, then we're going to work on our rosebud thorn exercise, and then move into those weekly setup pages. So as mentioned, because this is the first one of the week of the month, you can find that blank page in your journal and you can either use a weekly scratch pad, you can put it on the definition page on page 3, you can do the quote page on page 38. I know a lot of people are team back page, which is page 60, but this gives you an opportunity because it's not printed in your journal to kind of add that own unique kind of flair to this particular thing. So you can certainly work on that. And so we're going to put it into 4 different sections. And then you can kind of use however you want to work for that. And then we will use this opportunity to ask a little additional questions to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the month's theme through these different prompts. And I did see that someone mentioned that they enjoy the shorter mind map questions, and I would fully agree with that. I think I came in when I wrote these ages ago for previous months. I definitely went really in detailed, really in depth because it was a theme that I feel like you all got to stand in front of the mirror with me and discuss what we needed. So for week 1, we're going to do some sensory grounding. And this is one that I think is a great exercise, but there's definitely a time and a place for it. As I said, I'm just a little bit too scattered at the moment to try kind of successfully do this. So I am trying to work a little bit harder to kind of set aside some time to do that. But the way this one is that we often move through our days without noticing the tiny wonders all around us. So take a moment to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Tune into your body and your senses. And so, what is one thing you notice that you usually aren't aware of? And is there anything that you can express gratitude for? And so I did this kind of a little bit earlier as we were doing this. And I think most of you all, if you've come to these socials before the last couple of years, I have been doing them in the middle of the night just because where I was on the time zone side. So for me, it is now a very weird sensation to be doing this with the sun out and daylight. The natural lighting is doing wonders for my, hair and makeup. But it becomes one of those, so it completely reframes and changes kind of how I approach, honestly, the Silk and Sonder journal and as a whole, having to almost shift to do journal work during the day, whereas previously was doing very much in the evening and the nighttime as kind of a wrap up closeout. And I've just realized that I have just very different focuses based on those times of when I do it. So it's definitely going to be kind of building and creating a new routine. So I am going to give you some time to work on this, but we are just kind of taking that quiet moment to connect your body and your senses, and what's the one thing you notice that you aren't aware of, and that is there something that you can then turn to express some gratitude for. And we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I love seeing all of the various responses, which I do find it always really interesting with these mind map questions of kind of what it's going to bring up. But I do appreciate the spin on this of not only just that moment of acknowledging kind of what you're feeling, what you're sensing, but also then kind of tying into how can we be grateful for it? How can we just add that increase of overall awareness? And I do think it's a lot of that kind of the simplest of terms that kind of stop and smell the roses. I think this is one of those moments and one of those exercises that can certainly be really valuable, especially again, if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, a little scattered, all of those things. Like I said, I had a little bit of a tough time trying to like focus on this one just because I feel like as soon as I kind of closed my eyes to try and meditate on it or think on it, it was just like everything was going a mile a minute. All the things I needed to do, all the things I was missing, all the things that were coming up, all of the, things in different places, kind of that started unfortunately raveling through, which I think was certainly the opposite. It's trying to find the more positive awareness things and not necessarily just being aware of all the things that you haven't accomplished, which I do have a hard time kind of delineate between those two. So we are now going to move on to that rosebud thorn exercise. So this is going to be on page 30 in your journal. And so this is another great way to kind of reflect on the past week, because as we are all aware, you have the highs, the lows, and everything in between each week that you have. And what I love is just the opportunity to give them their moment. And you can either like acknowledge on what kind of they're operating on. Is it something good? Is it something that can be positive, or is it something that just needs its moment to acknowledge that maybe it didn't go so well, you didn't go so well, and tapping into maybe some of the self-awareness of what you can control, what you can't control, and deciding how you're going to move forward with that. The rose is going to be a highlight, something that went well, something that made you happy, something that made you smile, something that was just kind of that bright spot in your week. For me, I am a big fan of Eliza Schlesinger. I think she is hilarious. She's right there with my like millennial sense of humor. And honestly, I hadn't really been to a comedy show before on kind of that scale. I had seen kind of smaller open mic night type things, but this was a full-fledged like in a theater. I took my sister with me, and so we had a really fun event because we were trying to think the last time like she and I were just the two of us that went and saw a show together. But it was super fun. It was great. She puts on a great show. But I just feel like it's one of those that like it's a certain sense of humor, and I was absolutely there for it. The bud is going to be an emerging opportunity, something that you're looking forward to, something that is on the horizon, something that can kind of add that added brightness to kind of maybe move you forward through the week. For me, my bud is honestly, as I think some people have mentioned, I am back in the States from work contract overseas for the last 3 years or so. So it's really nice to be back home for a current amount of time. Still don't know what that looks like, so maybe hopefully we'll have more news on that front soon. But right now it's really nice to kind of plan and do all those things, hang out with family. We just had an Easter gathering, so being able to cook and hang out with all of them is really fun. And then we have the thorn. That's something that didn't go so well, something that maybe could have gone better, a roadblock, a speed bump, or what I like to kind of refer to it a little bit as is something that is taking up too much time, energy, or effort for you. So I'm a big fan of looking at in that perspective instead of dwelling on too much of the negative, which I love to do. And I think it's no secrets, it's time zones. I am absolutely exhausted at like 7, 8 o'clock at night, but then I am like wide awake at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and it's a little bit of a struggle to go back to sleep. So that is getting better, but hopefully it's just like he said, I couldn't tell you what time it is, what time I should be eating, what time I should be doing something. So it's a little bit of a weird, wild ride. But as always, we are on page 30 in your April journal. We would love if you want to share in the chat your rosebud thorn for the week because we love to celebrate all of those roses, get excited for all of those buds, and then just send out a little extra thought, prayer, strength, or whatever is needed as we approach those thorns. And we'll see you soon. thank you everybody for sharing and certainly seeing a wide range again of those roses. It's family, it's getting to spend time, seeing some milestones when it comes to exercise, fitness, and finances. That's always great to see. And then, unfortunately, always on the thorn side, because even the most beautiful roses do have thorns, seeing some work-related ones, also some health situations as well. So just sending out some extra thoughts or prayers and those type of things. And what I personally really enjoy about the rosebud thorn exercise is it gives you an opportunity to kind of put these things out there kind of into the world, which I always find really nice, really satisfying to do so. It's always really great and just a little bit of a relief, which I think is really nice because sometimes you just need to let it out somewhere or write it down. So I think this is just a really powerful but somewhat simple exercise, but I think it's really great. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And as always, please continue to share in the chat if you feel so, especially even as we move through the weekly planner. So now we're going to move into those weekly planner pages, which I believe are going to be page 32 and 33 in your April journal. So you can join us there. And then this is always kind of how I frame everything with there is no right or wrong way to journal. What is really nice about getting to start each week anew is that you can use it exactly as listed, and you can either connect some of those different sections or you can keep them completely separate. Sometimes you need to completely repurpose everything because that is the type of week that you're going to have. And then there are other times where you just need a break from certain things. So if you get a little stuck or have a little bit of a hard time finding some inspiration, one, definitely put that in the chat because we have some amazing folks that have great ideas and other really creative ways. You guys are the best source of inspiration with these things come. But also sometimes it's something as simple as asking yourself, what do you need this week? Because what you need this week is going to be completely different than maybe what you needed last week. I feel especially if you are an educator or if you have school-age children or even college age children as well. Spring break, I think, is now kind of ended or at least kind of wrapping up. So we know that those weeks look a little bit different than the weeks where everyone is kind of back at work, back at school, and the less fun holiday type weeks and just the standard old weeks. So sometimes that's a good way to kind of approach each of these pages. And so I'm going to start at the top of page 32 and work down. So I start with this week I want to feel. And I usually always ask myself, how do I want to feel this time next week? It's that opportunity to take a little bit of ownership or even a little bit of the intentional optimism as we approach that. But you can also certainly respond with this week I want to feel. And sometimes that is a specific word, a specific phrase. Maybe it is tied to your word of the year. Maybe it is in line with the theme. Maybe it's your word from last week because you kind of really knocked it out of the park and you want to do that. Oh, Joelle, congratulations. It'll be a wonderful week for you then. And then you'll have less of something, maybe more of something. I love the percents. I use that probably way too much. But then sometimes it's associated with a doodle or some other kind of form of inspiration. I also like the idea of a sticker because, as we know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So maybe that is how you want to feel. So I am going to play a quick song. And if you certainly want to answer this week you want to feel or this how you want to feel this time next week, we would love to see that. And we'll see you soon. Okay, so now that we have how we want to feel this week, we are now going to overlay, still on page 32, those weekly major three goals or the weekly three goals, weekly minor goals, or just weekly things that have a priority. And I like to connect this section, the weekly major three goals, and the to-do list together because I kind of work on those pretty much the same, as I go because I find them very similar. The weekly major three goals for me are the mental and emotional reminders I need to give myself as I navigate through this. And one of my major goals for this week is to kind of get back onto that kind of appropriate what is it? Synergy with the like day and the night. I can't even think of it. That's where we're at. We're starting to hit that time where it's middle of the night for me. So certainly get back into like kind of that time zone and try not to nap too much or this circadian rhythm. Nathania, thank you. I knew someone would come through. You all are amazing. But other ways to approach this are certainly you can do the categories, the mind, body, soul. Maybe it is a revisit, a restore, relax, again with those alliterations. Maybe it is just, again, some of those three ideas that you want to have. Maybe you need three goals for each day. So an early goal, a midday goal, and an evening goal. I find that really helpful if you have a lot of stuff going on or a lot of different things going and you almost need to micromanage your day, which I know can have its own connotation, but sometimes I find that really helpful. Maybe you have one big goal that you want to accomplish. I do feel like kind of 'tis the season, taxes kind of take over as a major goal. But maybe it's a frog, fun, fierce. Maybe it is those four C's, which is create, consume, cavort, and commune, which is goals for you, goals for others, goals to move, and social goals. And then I kind of think in terms of the lower one on the left with those different categories and then tying them to that to-do list. But then this particular individual gamified it, which we do love our bingos in the Silk and Sonder community. So maybe that is a fun approach to it. Maybe this is, like I said, where those mental and emotional reminders are. Maybe it's only two goals, a home and a work. Maybe you want to completely swap these sections because your brain works a little bit better with the lines and the to-do lists or some more of those kind of other alliterations. And then we move into those weekly to-dos. So these can absolutely be a traditional to-do list, but maybe it's a little bit more of a to-do list because you just want to celebrate along the way. Maybe you need a little bit more structure with either the Pomodoro technique or the Eisenhower matrix. The Eisenhower matrix is the do, decide, delegate, or delete. I will probably use a little bit of the Eisenhower matrix while I'm back here, just because there is an element of delegation that I can do now since I'm staying with my parents. Or maybe I'll just have to absorb some of their delegations to me now that I am back, which is always great, always fun. We get along really well, but it's just nice to be able to delegate and share some of those just activities throughout where you just don't always have to worry about it. But maybe you just need to reprioritize or rename some of these to-do lists with either a needs and a wants, a don't do this, a do this instead. Or if you had a little bit of a hard time finding some of those roses, maybe this is where you want to add kind of the weekly wins. Forget the, not forget the happy thoughts, leaning into the awareness a little bit. Maybe it's the to be's, maybe it's just the gentle reminders to not do, or maybe it is that work and personal to-do list broken down into that needs and want categorization. So I am going to give you some time to work on this. I'm going to play a song. If you need me to go back to a specific example, please. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to go to that very last section on page 32. And it's going to be that habit and activity tracker. What I really like about this one is I work kind of hand in hand with the monthly habit tracker because I am a creature of habit. There are three things that I want to accomplish every single day, and that is move, read, and journal. And so I've kind of put these things now on a pedestal, and I add my lens of reality in the weekly pages for this. And it's how much time can I dedicate to it? How much energy can be spent to it? What's the weather going to be like? And so now that I'm over here, I have my car back, so I will be doing less just in general walking for errands, which is always nice. But that does mean I need to find another way to kind of move and implement those type of things. So I'm having to kind of reframe how I approach my habits and activities for the, next new normal. But other ways to do this is you can do the stop and start. Maybe it is setting the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maybe this is where those mental and emotional reminders are to give yourself because you've incorporated these habits and activities either solely on the monthly habit tracker, which are things that you want to do every day, or within your to-do list. But maybe this is also a section I feel like when I get really overwhelmed or when I'm on vacation or when I have people visiting, I feel like this is the first section that gets kind of removed from the priority list, and I will cover it with stickers because those are things that are just incorporated. And I think it becomes a little bit of the kind of being present capacity. But I like the different spread of having the weekdays versus the weekends, which always I think can look a little bit different. And then just because there are 5 lines does not mean you need to have 5 lines. Maybe it is 3 things, maybe it is 2 things. Maybe the allergies are really wrecking your world. And so maybe it's just kind of the rest, the relax, the stay hydrated, kind of those things, or leaning into kind of other components of that. And then you all know what's next. Those really lovely iconography. And as I've certainly mentioned, is that I repurpose my expense tracker, sometimes my sleep tracker, depending on which it is, to now have those bucket lists and adventure lists. So I'm still going to incorporate these things because I do think there's an element of simplified things. I will say walking barefoot in the grass is one of my favorite things to do. I really don't wear many shoes when I'm back at home because I know my parents work really hard on their grass and it is lovely. So it's adding these type of things, giving them a pedestal, letting them have their kind of magic moment. And I think these are also a really great way to embrace the theme of awareness as we go, just because I think there's an elegant simplicity in embracing these things and slowing down and kind of having some of those ideas, but also just something really fun. And a lot of these things you're kind of already doing. Maybe it is seeing things, walking things, doing things, even something as simple as opening a window if you're sitting and doing your reflections. And then I really liked the April self-care kind of slow living concept, as well as being a Sunday. So maybe it's kind of some gentle Sunday night ideas or small things that you can sit and do outside of just your journal prep. So I am going to stop talking and we'll go back, but I always am interested in what habits and activities you all are working on. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So now we're going to move to the B side, which, for those of you who have not ever heard that reference, I always refer to this second page as the B side, thinking in terms of a record. The A side, everything that we did, that's all the like top 10 hits. Those are the ones that were on the Billboard Top 100, number one spot for all the weeks to go. But then if you flip over to the B side, there are some gems, but for the most part, these may not crack the top 100. And that is okay. But this was something that I just kind of needed as a way to reframe this particular page because I was just adding a lot of pressure and a lot of excess energy and effort to something that really wasn't quite helpful. Or I was just kind of running into those situations where they were just only partially getting done. And so that is why I kind of reframed it that way, and I have felt immensely better. But you can obviously approach this. This is certainly one of those pages that does get repurposed often, but you can also use this meal plan as exactly as listed as a meal plan. And that can be something that you prep for, or it can be something that you track in real time. Again, maybe you're having a slightly harder time kind of finding some of those like magical moments or the good things or the weekly wins. So maybe that is where you kind of track that. Maybe this is also where you have the daily doodles or something a little bit more creative or almost a little bit more therapeutic, the meal plan for the soul. So that is where the journal prompts can be. If you work with Jenny, our AI coach, maybe that is where you put some of her motivation or some of her ideas. But this is a great place to kind of maybe turn off your brain a little bit if you need that. Can be where you put the affirmations or even just help yourself prioritize or whatever healthcare journey you're on. This is another mechanism to track that, even though I think a lot of those things are digital now. But it could be, again, helpful motivation to kind of track there. I absolutely do use this section for a clothing plan. I use it when I travel, especially when I was doing work travel. It's such a great way to not overpack, but also repurpose some of the things because I am a overpacker when it comes to shoes. And now I can say that with that subtle change of tracking it on this thing, I will now comfortably only travel with maybe one or two pairs, which is life changing for me. So I certainly enjoy that. But again, maybe this is where just some of those other tools are to be helpful to you. The mind body health plan is also over here, and that is something that you can plan for, or also something you can track a little bit more into being real time. And so you can focus a little bit on the same alliterations of kind of tricking yourself into accomplishing some of those things. Nathania, who is in the chat, with the really, really nice and very powerful check in with yourself with the I feel this, therefore I need this. I think it's really great. It is something that is, like I said, can be a bit of, eye-opening with the change. Because something is like, I think Jenna was the one that kind of asked some of the questions. It's like, are you hungry? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? And it's always one of those that's maybe that is kind of adding to some of the anxiety or the feelings. So it is certainly something worth, again, maybe being a little bit more self-aware, and kind of checking in with yourself throughout the day as you go. But again, maybe it's leaning into some of the things within April, just as like fun motivation. Maybe this is where your reading log is. Maybe it's the 7 types of rest. Maybe this is where some of those journal prompts are, or even just the gentle reminders to maybe unplug for an hour or kind of turn everything off or just kind of step away. Do something again to help your mind. I also liked these cute little things, 6 things that really aren't so little. And then maybe if you're feeling a little bit down, I think, ironically, it is actually snowing right now in Scotland. So I was starting to feel a little bad for those people in the like fake spring. And I still feel like it's one of those that you hit kind of that somewhat where it's like spring is being really weird or your allergies are really kind of coming through. And so if you're just having a little bit of a rough go, here's some really gentle reminders to consider when you're feeling down. And then we do have the shopping list that can go hand in hand with that meal plan. Or for me, when I do use it as a clothing tracker or a like wardrobe packing, this section I use kind of hand in hand with that of some of the like other things that you need to bring. For me, it's usually laptop, power cords, all of the different cables, different chargers, all of those things that need to be remembered when you travel. But this can be, since I think it was Joelle that said she had a birthday this week, you can lean into a little bit of the fun bingo side of things and turn it into a birthday bingo or any sort of themed bingo. I think you all are aware we love a good theme. So maybe it's a just for fun, maybe it's the boring stuff. Bingo, maybe it's to celebrate the wins. Maybe these are the social check-in reminders, more of a cozy bingo or a spring bingo. Or even this is where maybe some of those to be reminders can be, or even the don't buy versus buy, or even again, that kind of here are things that I maybe need to get, or things that I maybe need to get next week. Or we do love the glimmer bingo, or even some of the quotes here, or even just this is where some people will purpose the kind of wardrobe, especially if you maybe work from home or have that kind of component there. But it's always a really fun thing to do. So I am going to play one more song. Let me know if you want to see a particular example again, or I will just go through these slides and we will see you soon. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. And then we have that very last section at the bottom of the page, which is the I am loving section. And I think this has become a really fun one that I start to definitely look a little bit more forward to because I love the idea of just kind of acknowledging something that is just making you happy, something that's making you smile, something that you are currently loving. So if you would like to share in the chat what you're currently loving, we would like to see that. I am currently loving seeing the sun again and more often. it's really nice. It's those very small things that you miss. But I certainly enjoy that. And then, as always, we would love if you want to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. We think that's a great place to hang out and do all of those things. We also enjoy seeing all of your inspiring pages. So definitely share if you want to. We get that inspiration there all the time from those from you all. That is how we put together our wonderful slideshow. And but again, you guys provide the best inspiration, the best ideas, and you all are amazingly creative. Something that I feel like I certainly can never come up with. But then also we have our upcoming exclusive, which is the Spring Clean Reset that's going to be hosted by Jen O. This one does come with a fee, but if you are interested, you can attend in person. But if you cannot make it, do not worry. And if you've already paid for it, you will get a link to it at the end of it. That'll be happening on the 21st. Maya put a link in the chat for that. We also have a sale on our minimalist digital journal. So this is for those that have a little bit more on the go, or maybe if you're wanting to help others that are just not quite keen on the florals, but it can be a really great kind of segue into this, or a great travel option. Or again, if you don't always have everything available, but I think there's an element of savviness required when it comes to the digital journaling. But I think this is a really great option if you kind of want to branch out in that realm. Always, we do continue to have our AI personalized coach, which is always changing every day, and those different ideas. And if you ever run into any issues or questions about that, that will be at concierge@silkandsonder.com. And here is a copy of my playlist. I will include the link in the chat. And then Maya also included the YouTube link because that is where all of our recordings are. So if you have to leave a little bit early or show up a little bit late or want another facilitator's perspective on the theme, that is a great place to do it. And then as always, we were so glad you're here. Thank you for joining us. I know that you're going to have an amazing rest of your week because you're going to have an amazing rest of your day. And I hope to see you at a future event real soon. Bye.